For many chess players, one often might think, man, there must be that one game that just stands out from the rest. That one game that once it finishes, you just feel like looking at it and just recounting stories about it. Everyone has their best game. And for many of you watching right now, you're probably gonna be like, what the heck am I watching? Why is a guy wearing a wizard hat or a weird thing over his head? How can he even see? Well, good question. I can see. And today, welcome to my channel, guys. It is National Master Brian Amaya here. As you know, the name of my channel is BlitzWizard94. This is probably one of the rare occasions where you do see me wearing a hat, but I'm here merely today to discuss my best game. And my best game involved a tournament in Puerto Rico. And that brings us to here. This was a tournament that took place in Puerto Rico, which concluded over 2 months ago in July. So we pretty much spent a whole week and a half in Puerto Rico from the 20th up to the 29th, and it was well worth it. We ended up watching Fantastic Four while in Puerto Rico. We ended up drinking actually in Puerto Rico and going to the beautiful beaches. It was a really well spent month, and one of the major accomplishments I had in Puerto Rico was not only being able to play against a grandmaster um, for the second time in my whole chess career in classical, also an international master as well by the name of Sergio Duran, both of which are very strong players. I was able to play Edgardo, who was a grandmaster, very strong, basically 2500 VA strength, and Sergio again, who was like 2380, 2360, but he was over 2400 and he's very, very young. So both are very well accomplished players in their careers, and respectively, I just felt like it was an honor to play against both of them. But this video is unfortunately not going to be about them. It's going to be about this game, which was actually one of the more kind of less dramatic rounds. Like this took place, if I remember correctly, it took place in like round 9. I'm not quite sure. I think it took place in round 9, but I have no idea. Well, that was an error. I did not mean to do that. That was so weird by me. I don't know what the information is. If I could find it, I could maybe show it, but I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay, I can see it a little bit here. This was, which round was this? I think I can see it here. This is round 5. So yeah, um, ignoring this again, this took place in round 5, and very quick context before this round actually began. Me and my friend, I think I don't remember if we were eating or something. I have no idea. We were running late to the game, and I was very, very sad because I wanted to take the tournament seriously, but me and my friend were just eating a bunch of crap and weren't really fully committed, which was very sad. Well, I was trying to be committed, but we were just being very silly half of the time. And so the Uber went. We ended up being at the wrong location, so we had to take another Uber, which led us to the tournament. And so I started with over. I don't know if the clock will show you. It doesn't show you, but at this point, I believe I started with less than 10 minutes, which isn't that bad, all things considered. So, oh yeah, I remember actually. We were looking at tourist attractions like gift shops, etc. And then again, wrong location dropped us up by an Uber. Then we had to take another Uber, and we make it to the game. So I'm with the black pieces. Let me actually just flip the board here. My opponent, his name is Raul. I think his name is I forgot his actual name. If I remember correctly, it was Raul something. I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, it was Almeida Ortiz and Edgardo. He is actually the Puerto Rican champion, so that's why this game actually kind of feels special. Because in a way, you're gonna see why. We get D4 from. I'm actually. What do I call him actually? I'm just gonna call him Almedina. Yeah, I'm gonna call him Almedina. So Almedina basically starts the game with D4. I go into F6, and now of all things that he could have played, he decides to play the London system. And when I saw London system on the board, I'm like, okay, this is actually not that bad. I thought he would go for a normal, typical Queen's Gambit decline, maybe some nice, simple, calm transpositional move like knight f3. Basically opting for maybe a Callan or Queen's Gambit, like anything very more subtle with move orders. But nah, he decides to just go for a simple, boring approach with the London. I respond with d5. We get e3, c5, and here is where I start to go wrong because I need to study my openings, guys. Like I've said this a bunch of times on the channel. I have really terrible opening problems, and I really do not know how to study openings, which I need to do. I just played c5 automatically because instinctively everyone plays c5 because it challenges the base of the d4 e3 pawn structure and also features ideas like maybe transferring the queen from d8 to b6 to target b2. That's just typical. But he just takes the pawn. So in my head, I'm just thinking, okay, how do I regain the pawn? Let's just go knight c6. And after bishop b5, I'm instantly just stuck. And I'm realizing, man, I don't know what to do. The engine just says, okay, just go e6. And they go b4. Apparently, I don't know. Apparently a5 is just equal. But I thought, okay, let's say takes, and then c3. I don't see how black is going to regain the pawn. That's initially what I thought. But again, the engine thinks, okay, knight d7 and black's fine, which is, I don't know, I just didn't like the position. I thought this was just giving white two passers for no reason. So instead, after bishop b5, I end up playing the move, queen a5 check, which is okay. We get knight c3, and again, I have to think out of the box. I cannot think normally. I end up playing the move e6, which is nearly, well, no, it's over +1 according to the engine, and I really, at the time, I didn't think it was that bad because in my thought process, okay, I thought, a3. Whole point is that after bishop takes c5, white will play the move b4, and he wins a piece. If I try to take back here, he can just take back. The queen is guarding the rook, so I don't get anything. White would just simply be up a piece. So from that standpoint, I realized, man, there's no way I'm actually losing on the opening. Damn it, why do I always keep losing on the opening? So to my surprise, he plays the move queen d4. And at this point, I realized, man, I might maybe have a chance to complicate. I play bishop d7. We get takes on c6, bishop takes c6, and the move b4. And after a while, I find the only practical move which keeps me in the game because it complicates in a way that I had to calculate instinctively, and that's the move queen a3. Now, why is queen a3 such a really resourceful move? The whole point, let's just say they do knight e2, now we have this very counteractive idea of going a5, disrupting the pawn structure so that if they go b5, we're able to take back the pawn c5. Not only is it equal material, but the position is quite open that the bishops could maybe go b4, knight can go e4, we could castle, and put our bishop back and get the rooks on the open files. And I'm sorry guys if I can't draw the arrows, I simply do not have the USB for my mouse, so I'm very, very sorry for that. But that was the idea with that. The one thing I had to take into account here, what happens if they go rook b1, which Almeida did in the game, and Almedina did in the game, basically pinpointing that he's hinting at maybe trapping my queen in the future. I wasn't scared. I held to my guts, and here I actually played a very counteractive move, which is b6. Whole point is that when he take, I took back, and he's actually not take the pawn. Had he taken the pawn, he would have basically just blundered the knight, so he can't take it. So exactly that's why he just goes knight f3. I go bishop d7, and then he castles, and I castle back. So position now has reached an imbalance. On one hand, you could say white's just practically better, given the fact that he's up a pawn. On the other hand, you need to counter in the activity. The amount of activity that black has is enough compensation for his pawn. And instinctively, I realized, man, if I'm worse, I'm worse. But how bad can this possibly be? When considering the fact that I do get the open files for the rooks, I'm able to perhaps switch this pawn off for his b pawn or the c2 pawn, which I noticed was a very lethal weakness given the fact that the knight on c3 is blockading that very weak pawn, so maybe I can win the c2 pawn in the future. So we get rook b3, I go queen a7, and now a4. At this point, Almedina just realizes, man, this is not looking so well. I'm perhaps maybe going to have to give up my pawn for some type of activity. I was considering bishop takes, rook a1, and the move b5. Queen takes, rook takes, but then he has a really amazing move, knight takes b5. I could take back here, but then rook takes a7, and then the bishop is falling, and I have no moves. And if I were to just move my rook back, like I like here, then again, I simply am just getting crushed. Rook ba3, exposing the pin. If I take, then rook takes, and you lose the exchange, which I saw really clearly. So that's why I didn't try taking the pawn. I instead went for the most optical and objective move in the position, which was rook fc8, developing my last piece to expose the resource of counterplay, exposing that white is blockading his only good advantage, which is his pawn. And if this advantage is gone, both my bishops are pointing at the a4 pawn and the b4 pawn, which could become potential targets. He realizes this, goes rook a1. I go bishop e8. Again, only move which complicates. This is the best move according to the engine, and I found it on the board. Bishop to e8, and now the move knight e5. Again, complicating the position. I go knight h5, realizing if I remove white's best piece, these bishops are monsters. This rook could potentially go c4 once I kick this knight out with f6, and it's very dangerous for white here. He decides to go queen e1. Sorry for going a little bit fast there. I chop off the bishop. We get e takes f4, and now the move queen c7. Again, immobilizing the knight c3. If the knight c3 were to move, I would take on c2, and these pawns are under threat, and they will fall. And once they fall, everything else will just crumble, and black will easily be able to maneuver into a winning endgame. So we get rook a2, but now f6. Admiration, admiración, as you would say in Spanish, because it is a really amazing move. And now d4, we get knight e2, and now rook takes, just chopping off the pawn because it comes with tempo. We get rook a3, I chop off the rooks, and now queen takes c2. The only amazing move that just gives complete control of the position for black. We get trade of the queens, knight takes d4, rook d2, forking here. Now the move g3, giving some space. We get check, king g2, and the move bishop g6. This was my only mistake in the game. Here I had a way to win, but I didn't see it. I didn't see the resource. I was looking at the move bishop takes b4 for a long while, and I was calculating stuff like rook a1, and it was just really incredible how I just missed the fact that after takes and takes, rook e1, he's just fine. Like, he has no issues. I mean, that's what I thought. But I could play bishop c5 here and still be better, despite a move like knight takes c6, but I just didn't see it. The engine apparently just recommends the move bishop e7, which I don't understand. Oh yeah, bishop e7, and I don't know. Okay, so apparently rook d7, and then just king e8, and the rook has to move, and we just win the knight. I did not see that. But the main concern after bishop takes b4, which I was looking at during the game, if knight takes, actually, what was the main concern? Oh, yeah, the main concern was rook b3. If rook b3, what do I do? And this is the move that I missed. This is the move I missed in my calculation. Because I thought, okay, my bishop will go c5, but then just knight takes, pawn takes, and then knight takes, and I don't see anything else. Because if bishop c6, the king just walks away, and white is just, perhaps I thought white was just better in the game. And if I go bishop f7, again, just rook b8, check. I have to block, and he wins my bishop. So I thought this was losing. But the move I missed, which is counteractive, which I sure saw, was the move bishop a5. This move would have gotten me a really clean pass pawn if he takes on e6. Then essentially just bishop c6 check, king h3, and now the move bishop d5. And spaghettios, you're using a knight or the exchange. Well, actually, you're just using a piece in general, even if you defend the rook with a knight. So that was what I missed. I missed bishop a5. So this prompted me in the game to instead go for the move bishop g6 because I saw this won a pawn. He went for the move f5. I took it. Knight takes, pawn takes, and the move rook a7. This is essentially what gives away the game for Almedina. Here he could have maybe held on and I thought that this would have gone a little bit better. How you saw the move King F3. This was actually what was looking at the game, because I thought King F3 was the only sort of counterplay, because the knight could eventually route not only from F4, but to D5, and maybe this rook could get the B6 pawn in exchange for the B4 pawn. I was envisioning a perhaps, a future endgame where there would be like a 4-on-3 on the king side, but it wouldn't be enough. Almedina ultimately did not choose to go this route and played the move Rook A7, which I saw was immediately game over. I took the knight, he took the bishop, and now I go for the move Rook D4. This is complete liquidation. We get Rook B7, I take the pawn, F4 for check, and now the move H5. I realize here that there is a common occurrence. Whenever you have a rook endgame, you want to try to find a route where your king has mobility and you fixate the pawn structure. Once your pawn structure is fixed and their opponent's pawn structure fixed, really you only have king moves. And if the king moves that they make only makes them have a worse position, that kind of transforms it to be kind of like a Zug's one, then it's basically game over. You just have to just try and make it so it's their turn and do moves like waiting moves that basically make them run out moves. And for me, in this position, since white is not only down 2 pawns, I initially thought, okay, I move my king in somehow into the center. I move my pass B pawn. Maybe I give up for the A pawn and then win with my connected passes on the queen side. That's initially my thought process. I thought that this was just the winning pawn. He played H4, and now I push my pawn. We get King F1, push, back, and now King F8. I'm marching my king forward. Push, I just march my king forward. I give up the pawn, knowing well that once he takes the pawn, I would just simply move my rook back. So let's say here, let's say he took it here, I would took rook b2, and if he moves the king back to f1, I would have simply pushed, and I would have won the game. Just take and make a queen. This is not a fortress. Again, as Magnus Carlsen said, I don't believe in fortresses. Or even better yet, after rook takes b2, we could have simply gotten the move rook a2, and now b2, b1. Let's say check, king, check, king. And then back here, just b2. And if you want to be a little bit humorous, you can make a rook, check. And then once rook takes happen, just rook check, and you win the rook. So I saw that there were patterns like this, which easily just won the game. And so for that reason alone, he did not take the pawn on g7. He instead tried to maintain the rook on the b file, but it was to no avail. I simply brought my king upwards, brought my king upwards. Now we get rook takes g7 eventually, but it's to no avail again. Just check, king there, and move my rook to b1, to g1, targeting the g3 pawn, threatening rook check to push the promotion of my b pawn. So he decides to give a check. I go king c4, and here I actually do like a triangulation of sorts to make it so white becomes in Zugzwang. So that white has no real good rook move, because every rook move just fails. He does rook c7 check. I go king d4, and watch out. Here I went king e4. The DGT actually got this wrong. I went king e4, and this opponent, sorry, not this opponent. In this move, my opponent was touching the king, and he intended to play the move king c3, but he didn't play it, and he realized, oh, it's game over. He paused the clock, and he shook my hand. That was the best game of my life. And why couldn't he play king c3? He could, but then just check, king moves, and I just take the rook. But even if he didn't done that, there's really no moves. The reason why I played this weird triangulation with the check, moving the king from c4 to e4, is so the fact that if he tries to go for rook b7, I can just push the pawn. And once rook takes happens, I do check, we get king c1, takes, and now my king is simply climbing up white's king, and I'm just going to gobble like a very fat American would, take all the pawns, and just escort to make my beautiful queen. That is basically game over. That is knockout. KO, basically, as the saying goes. So, I'm going to take off my wizard hat from now on. that is it, guys. This is my best game. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Make sure like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think about this game in the comments below. Did it interest you? Did it make you feel curious about chess? I don't know. At the moment right there when I was playing this, it really hadn't really occurred to me in my head. Like I felt excited, but I was still focused on the tournament. I saw, okay, I beat this guy, but my tournament's still going. I gotta keep going. Even then, this is the best win by far that I've made in my entire career. So again, I'm very, very thankful. And for what it's worth, I really had a good time in Puerto Rico. And this video is very, very late. I should have done this video a long time ago, but I was waiting a little bit just to see if perhaps I got a very stronger win. Unfortunately, nothing's happened yet. But who knows, in the future, when I do beat someone that's very, very high rated, maybe an IM or a GM in Classical, I will be able to look back on this video and say, yep, I've improved and I've beaten people way stronger than this guy. But for the time being, again, I really consider it a really nice achievement. I wouldn't dwell too much on it, as I remember one of my friends who was an FM was telling me, you should feel incredible. You just beat the Puerto Rican champion. I don't feel incredible. Like, yeah, he's awesome, etc., and he's 2200, but it's not like being Magnus or it's not like being someone that's huge. But for me, it is a step in the right direction as I'm trying to climb up the ranks and eventually try to gain my VA Master title. So let's hope I get to FM in the future, and from that point on forward, you know, maybe I do more videos like how I became an FM, like, you know, how I be a GM or an IM or another FM to become an FM. But who knows what the future tells? It's very long to see if I ever become an FM, but maybe we keep our hopes up and maybe stuff happen. If it doesn't, well, at least I can say I'm your neighborhood friendly national master. So guys, again, hope you enjoyed the video and take care. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more wizardry content. Blitz Wizard 94 out. Kneel before magic. Alright guys. Take care. Night.